In today's digital age, the convergence of interconnected technologies such as artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, cloud computing, and 5G has created unprecedented opportunities for growth across industries. These technologies work synergistically to optimize operations, enhance customer expectations, and drive innovation. So 5G plays a critical role by providing the high speed, low latency network that allows these technologies to function seamlessly together. Cloud computing, meanwhile, offers the scalability and flexibility needed to manage and store the immense volumes of data generated. Moving on to the panel discussion on harnessing the power of interconnected technologies for growth. And let me invite our panelists on stage. We have Himanshu Gupta, Country Manager, Telecom, Media and Entertainment, HPE in India. Amit Sinha Roy, VP Global Head, Strategic Alliances, Tata Communications. Anand Bhandari, Vertical Head, Internet of Things, Reliance Jio. Shankar Srinivasan, Lead IoT and Enterprise 5G Solutions, APJC Region, CISCO. Mr. Vikas Shokeen, Business Head, North and Rest of India, Bharti, Airtel. Sunil David, Digital Technology Consultant and former Regional Director, IoT, AT&T. And the session will be moderated by Anil Chopra, Vice President, Research and Consulting, CyberMedia Research. Well, that's quite a full panel, I must say.
We have the toughest job today, just before lunch.
Over to you, Anil.
Thanks a lot. I think we have the toughest job today, right? Because we are sitting between them and lunch, right? So we'll have to make it as interesting as we possibly can. Thanks for setting the context. I think it's a very tremendous, great opportunity when we look at all these technologies that are converging together, and just to kind of look at each technology individually, look at the kind of growth that we're seeing. AI at 40% CAGR and IoT at 15%. 5G, where they're saying that 65% subscribers by 2029 will be on 5G. That kind of a thing that is happening. And investments, of course, are happening in digital transformation, which kind of probably combines all these technologies together, right? So lots of compelling use cases, I guess, can be implemented. But of course, there are challenges: deployment, integration, regulatory, security, privacy, lots of things. So I think it's good to kind of have a discussion on this. And maybe Anand, I'll start with you to look at how is this convergence really creating these growth opportunities, the business growth opportunities.
Sure, thanks, and welcome everyone. Well, to start with AI and IoT, they have a perfect marriage, and they've conceived a child called as AIoT. That's what basically is going to drive the overall experience, the B2B use cases going forward. So the things of past that we used to see in Steven Spielberg kind of movies now actually have become reality. And what has made that possible is the 5G ecosystem. Because it's not about the algorithms, it's not about just the technology going into it, but it's the right data coming at the right time and making it extremely reliable for us to process the overall thing. So it is RRR, the Oscar-winning formula that comes here into picture. And once you have that, you have, you can open a box of Pandora. Just a simple example, retail. You follow a consumer right from e-commerce to a retail store. And when a person is walking in an aisle or in a shopping complex, you actually send data so fast that you know exactly where that person is and collect that data on what he or she had browsed on an Amazon or in Geo or any other website, and then follow it across that aisle, give personalized experience. So that's something that is going to change with AI and IoT. These are some simple examples, but of course there are B2B examples coming to predictive, preventive, and now prescriptive maintenance. Algorithms like ARIMA, SARIMA, all of these are now going to get a boost with 5G coming in, because you have tremendous amount of data, MMTC coming into picture. And that's how we build up the scale.
No, thanks, Anand. Absolutely good example of RRR, and you mentioned specifically about personalized experiences. But Amit, any specific examples that you want to share across industries about using this convergence of these technologies? Specific industries, you can think of in India that would be relevant.
No, sure. Thank you for bringing that to me. So first, from a Tata Communications perspective, what is it that we are doing? Clearly, if you have been following us, you would have seen we've been talking about the hyper-connected ecosystem that our customers are now facing, where you have devices connected everywhere all the time, right? And how are we solving for this is through the digital fabric. And the digital fabric is all about the network fabric, the customer interaction fabric, the cloud and edge fabric, and then, of course, the IoT fabric, and that's the whole discussion that we're having today. Now, in terms of examples, clearly, if we look at what's happening in the automotive world, and I'm not going to talk about autonomous driving because you said keep it specific to and real, right? One of the things that you would see is that specifically the EVs and the vehicles typically get over-the-air software updates pretty much like a mobile phone, and some manufacturers almost push a SOTA, as it called, software over the air, almost every day, right? Now, depending upon where that vehicle is in terms of network coverage, what is it doing at that point in time, the update may be successful or may fail, right? Now, there is capability that we have, and there are automotive companies that are deploying it to actually be able to figure out at what time of day and at which location is the best time to push such an update, right? So that it is successful. And by minimizing failures, you of course improve the customer experience as well as reduce the the data cost, because pushing GBs of data can actually have hundreds of millions of dollars of loss, right? So this is one very real kind of example which is there and available today in terms of doing these software updates for these smart cars.
Great, thanks. I think that's a great example. I think there are many more examples that are now developing, and I think one challenge that a lot of companies are facing is, as far as B2B is concerned, what sort of examples are there in 5G that it is actually helping. So Sunil, we had a discussion offline, and you were talking about some really companies actually using it. So you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, sure. Firstly, I'd like to thank the CyberMedia group for inviting me to be part of this panel. And when you're talking about this whole convergence of technology, so Anand mentioned about convergence of AI and IoT, you mentioned AI, IoT. And then when you add cloud in the mix, then of course you need the network as well, right? So you have the sensory layer, which is IoT, then you have the network layer, the data layer, and all of them have to come together. And just to build on what Amit mentioned on automotive, I just wanted to very quickly highlight two examples. And I visited a factory in Chennai about a month back. This is about 60 kilometers from Chennai. This company called Sundaram Clayton Limited, one of the largest automotive component manufacturers in India. They make die castings, which many of these automotive OEMs use. And I spent half a day in the factory there. And they were one of the first to set up a private 5G network in their campus, which is actually productionized, because there are quite a few pilots going on, but this is actually productionized. And very quickly, what the use cases are. One is they wanted to connect all the machines using 5G. So the IoT comes into play there. They're monitoring all the machines using 5G network. Second is that they have these 5G cameras, 5G enabled cameras. And these cameras are high resolution cameras. So they're using it for two purposes. So one is for PPE compliance, and one is also from a safety perspective. So, and for surveillance overall, right? So they're all 5G enabled, connecting to the cloud. Third very interesting example is they have these autonomous mobile robots, which are there in the factory, which they are monitoring using 5G. Okay, and the newer factory, which is going to come up, which is about 30 kilometers from Chennai, would also have all these AMRs monitored through a 5G network. And when I actually spoke to the CIO as to what were the compelling factors to why, because the first question anybody would ask is, what is that I can do on 5G, which is not possible on 4G or Wi-Fi? And a couple of things which he said. One is that the use case was very compelling for him to look at low latency, high speed networks, because all these AMRs need to be monitored in real time. They need very, very high precision to operate in their factory. 5G was the best possible option for them. Second thing, he was also looking at a wireless first approach. Very, very interesting, because he said it was a big hassle managing all these cables. And for him, making sure that he looks at a wireless first approach made sense for him, especially in a new factory. Greenfield is obviously easier to actually, set up ground up wireless network, right? So for him, it was very clear that he had the right use case, and and he started to see the impact also. The business impact was clear, and very good example as to how when you combine 5G with IoT, and of course he's using all the data that he's getting in to analyze all the data and basis which he's making the decisions. But this is a very good example, and so much so that GSMA, the GSMA team and myself, we together and a couple of other folks visited that factory. That GSMA team was so enamored with that they actually invited him next month to MWC Las Vegas to come and join a CII roundtable and talk about this example. Because I think this is one very good example in South India, and of course, hopefully, this will open the eyes to many more large manufacturing enterprises to really start looking at the art of possible when you look at 5G. So those are my. I have a couple of other examples, but I'll share it if you get the time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think really great, compelling business case, I must say, that somebody is deployed. I'm sure that many other companies would want to look forward to deploying something like this. Himanshu, you want to add on this and maybe talk about how HP is addressing this convergence opportunity?
Yeah, thank you, Anil. Let me first give some data points. See, this topic of getting AI, IoT, and so-called connectivity along with the other technologies, it's quite interesting because these are individual islands in themselves. The most fundamental reason behind doing any of these use cases is the business benefit. But when you deploy such use cases, before that, a lot of planning from top down has to happen within the company, right? And I think we were discussing some of the challenges which we encounter when we try and deploy some of the use cases. Now, if I were to bring edge into it, and that's where the whole discussion is, edge with AI, how that can make a difference, and what can be the challenges when you try and deploy some of the use cases. So first and foremost, you should know that as per IDC, every 1 server out of 4 is going to be edge deployed by 2025. Okay, 2027. So next 2 to 3 years, 1 out of 4 servers is going to be edge deployed. So that's a very big number. Today, that can be very, very low. Secondly, the market in the edge computing is growing at a CAGR of approximately 16%. But in the generative AI, which is where the AI is moving. So AI is moving from narrow AI, which was analytics, to broad AI, or we can call it as generative AI, right? And that's where the focus has to lie. So all these use cases will eventually have generative AI-based LLMs, models, algorithms running right at the edge. And now it's a very, very, very interesting bifurcation you have to make. Edge, again, with AI can be edge AI, which is like embedded devices. We use so many of them. The sensors are there, and you have some ability to capture the data and do some algorithms on the device itself, like in say connected cars. You don't have a actual compute box sitting there, right? But in case of autonomous driving, it could be different. It could be different case of drones. It could be different case of a retail shop, where you can have an edge server sitting there, which is ruggedized and being able to do the analytics there itself. It could be computer vision based. It could be something to do with error detection, face recognition. It can be anything and everything. So there is no limitation in terms of industries and use cases we can cover. But what is important is, number one, 25% is going to be edge deployed. Secondly, sustainability. I think this is the most missed out point. If you look at 2030, today's, I'll give you some data points there. 2 to 3% of total power consumption is going towards AI as per IDC at the moment. And Google is spending 10 to 15% of their total power usage on generative AI applications, which is a very, very big number. And this is only going to go up and up by 2030. So if you look at all these technologies putting together, I think sustainability with the right deployment approach, and on top of that, bifurcating the use case is very important. As I said, if you're going to use an edge AI, which is embedded AI, then it could be very different planning from the management onwards, and it may require very, very low power devices. But when it comes to putting edge computing, right, in that case, it has to be ruggedized, rack-based servers, with ability to air filter, ability to be able to manage the vibrations and all, so it can be put on a rack or a wall anywhere in front of the customers also. So all these bifurcations, all these different use cases have to be understood very, very clearly so that we overcome the limitations. And the final point, which is very, very important, is about manageability. Seamless deployment is the state of the need. Now imagine you're going to deploy in bank edge computing along with generative AI LLMs, and it is spread across thousands of locations. It could be SBI, for example, right? You're going to put a use case there. You're going to analyze customers who are coming, and safety for the customers, or safety for that local branch. It can be a computer vision use case. Now imagine a software update comes on the LLMs, on the algorithms. Update is required on the compute. So you have to have the ability to manage this all equipment ecosystem as a platform. So that platform approach is very, very important, and that's where I think HP plays a big role, because we have got HP GreenLake for private cloud enterprise, which can be deployed on edge AI use cases, and we bring in flexibility, scalability, cost effectiveness, because we can consume your infrastructure as you grow, along with security and other paradigms which are very, very inherent in the design of these systems. So this is how I would say it's a long answer, but it covers the very relevant and very difficult aspects of deploying use cases in the edge AI.
No, absolutely. I think the most important thing is to identify a very compelling use case for a vertical, for an industry. And then obviously, many of these technologies kind of fit in, where you need an edge server, and then you need, all the layers on top. And, so very, very relevant, I think. And it's interesting to know how the market is growing for edge servers. I think more and more is going to increase, because you'll require real-time insights and all, which is actually where I come to the next question, Vikas. And that is around real-time insights. Sunil talked about surveillance and real-time, and Himanshu talked about having edge, so that you can do compute in real-time. And I think real-time and AI kind of are going hand in hand. You want to talk about leveraging, AI for real-time monitoring and, taking decisions and all that. What's really happening in that space?
Thanks, Anil, for giving this opportunity. See what is happening. So when we are clubbing the edge with AI, the data is generated out there and also processed out there. And on basis of both the things happening at the same place with a very low latency, that actually enables us to take a real-time decisions that gives us something, wherein like the assembly lines, for an example, in a manufacturing plant, in the machines on the assembly line can communicate with each other. They can really take decision how the production is happening. Is there any fault happening out there? How can the overall efficiency can be improved? And well, not only on the assembly lines, if you go to like factories like Nokia and all, they are using it for AGVs, they are using it for robotics, wherein like the entire ecosystem come together, communicate with each other, takes a decision, and then eventually it's a zero-touch type of manufacturing which is happening. You don't need people out there to run all that machines. It is like all automated, everything is happening out there. So that is like number one is like controlling and making the production happen on the ground with all of that edge and the AI base. The second thing which is happening out there, with help of AI, analytics and the prediction model, we can really predict a lot of things. We can predict when the failures are going to happen. What could be the possible reason? Like it can always analyze what would be the demand, what would be the prediction of the supplies, and then eventually it can figure it out how we can reduce the overall wastage, how we can reduce the overall cost, and how we can really improve the efficiency of the system. And not only to this, like wherever we have implemented this private 5G clubbed with the AI and edge, we have seen a lot of things happening. Like wherein the overall operational downtimes we are able to reduce. So in a factory, wherever we are implementing this edge AI clubbed with 5G, we can clearly see 15 to 20% of efficacy in terms of reduction in the operational issues. So the day-to-day failures which keeps on happening, we can eliminate all of them, and system can become a predictive out there. In case of one of the automobile manufacturing unit, we have put this technology, which is using the very high resolution cameras and checking the quality of the paint which was being done on the automobiles, and on the quality inspection itself, with help of very high data speeds and all of that, it can figure it out whether the quality is right or there is something wrong. So it can be used in the quality inspection. It can be used in a lot of predictive models wherein we can improve the overall efficacy of the system. That's how things are being done. And then there are so many use cases in health industry. There are so many use cases in the energy sector. There are so many things happening out there.
Thanks, Vikas. I think great points from you. And I think one very key point here is about reducing the improving the efficiency of any operation. And I think most of us know in any industry, just say manufacturing, even if efficiency increased by a few percentage points, it can actually save so much cost that it can give you the ROI of the technology itself. Many people tend to ask that question that how am I going to justify this investment? But I think one way of justifying is that how much of improvement you can really have. And a few percentage points matters a lot in these industries. So I think one important aspect we've kind of left out is on the security and privacy part of it, because ultimately if you're going to have convergence of technologies, you're going to have high-speed backbone for having this communication. Ultimately, you have to ensure that it's secure. There's privacy is there. Their data is being managed. Shankar, I'm going to throw that tough question at you about managing the security and privacy of such a converged network.
Thanks, Anil and team. I think speakers before me, the panelists before me or before us, spoke enough about security, and it's only befitting that the question comes to a CISCO representative, so to talk about security. I think it's very interesting times. I'm sure all of us have heard the cliche statement, data is the new oil. We've all heard this multiple times. I don't know how many times it's been repeated in forums like these. But what does it really mean, right? We spoke about data, AI, ML, training, language models. Remember, the fundamental aspect of all of this is the big data that you're collecting, whether it's in the telco or the enterprise or a bank or manufacturing. You're taking all that data and you're assuming it's going to be safe and secure, and you're putting it to a model to train and get certain outcomes. So fundamentally, security starts from essentially what we call 3 layers, essentially, right? So there's a elemental security. So you secure the endpoint, you secure the transport, you secure the base station, you secure the core infrastructure and so on. And the same holds good for enterprises as well. So it's not just the service provider and so on. The second one, and in there, you need to have posture management. So I'm trusted. I've postured myself as a trusted security partner, and I've started sending data. This trust has to be constantly revalidated, rechecked. So if I'm trusted, it doesn't mean tomorrow morning somebody can't mimic me and become a DDoS attacker. So first thing, establish trust from an endpoint perspective, constantly revalidate that trust. The second aspect is, how do you design for security? Your network design has to be in such a way that in the event, be prepared for an anomaly, be prepared for an outage. And what happens in an outage? You'll never have a blue screen of death. All of us know what happened a month back, and I don't wish to name names, but we all know what happened in the blue screen of death. A simple thing like network segmentation helps in identifying these things. You run a very large network. All of my colleagues talked about large networks and so on, where you've deployed private networks. Make sure you have segmentation. If there is an attack, the attack is localized. It's in a small area, so contained to a few machines, few 100,000, few thousand, few hundred, whatever. The third one is life cycle. Everything that we've spoken about in the session today involves multiple partners. Radio, API, we spoke about AI, ML. The model is generated by somebody, the model is trained by somebody, the outcome is sent to somebody else implements the outcome in your enterprise. It's not one throat to choke, though CISCO would have liked to be that, but then it's not the reality. All of us are equal partners in this game. So how do I trust each other? That life cycle management has to be done. And very obviously, that life cycle management was not done in the case of the blue screen of death that happened a month back, where you were trying to touch the kernel in some way, and that blew off, 100,000 machines across the world. So security is not an afterthought. You have to bake into every of our conversations all my friends have just spoken about.
No, absolutely. I think some of the fundamentals still remain the same, no matter how large a network you have. But two very important points. Basic thing of network segmentation is really, really required. And of course, you need to have an ecosystem of partners and have a trust. That is very, very important. I think when we're talking about multiple technologies and their convergence, you will be working with multiple partners. So naturally, there has to be trust. That is really required. I'm going to pause there for a minute to see if there's any question from the audience, because we've been talking and I think all of us have spoken once. So any questions from the audience for any of the panelists on any of the points that we have discussed, or maybe outside on this topic? Yeah, but if you don't ask a question, I'll not let you go. Maybe one question. Nobody? No, I think maybe we can take some questions offline. So maybe, since we are out of time, I'll maybe ask one. Is there a hand up? Yeah, so there's a question here. Wonderful. Can we please have the mic? Give the mic over here.
So, question to Mr. Shankar, actually. So, definitely, CISCO is trying our best to ensure that like everything is secure, because like when we talk about network, we are talking about the network layer, okay, TCP, IP, UDP protocols and all that stuff. How you are ensuring that like everything is secure from the security by design actually. Okay, so how we can ensure that like security, while designing the architecture, it is secure, the data is secure.
Great point. I think it's, though I'd like to say it's Cisco's role, it wouldn't be the most appropriate answer. Every application that you onboard on, let's say you're a IT manager of a bank, let's hypothetically say, has nothing to do with telecom, but you're the IT manager of a bank. And you're going to onboard certain applications from different vendors, a micro loan from a different application from a different vendor, a car loan from a different vendor, a credit card from a different vendor. You don't own all these applications, remember, right? These are containerized applications that somebody is bringing on, and you have a DC or a data center where you deploy all of these. It's fundamental that the players whom you onboard have some kind of a security mechanism built in. That's the first thing. So when you onboard new applications, you understand how their security processes are and how do you validate them. Lots of very standard formats available to evaluate how secure you are in building your code in the first place. The second thing is, all right, you've picked a vendor and now he or she is going to be talking to 7 different players in your application ecosystem. They're sending APIs northbound, southbound. They are using hardware from different partners of yours and so on. So how do you ensure that? And for that, we have something called an API security capability, right? So if I'm talking to any of my colleagues here, as long as I know my rate at which I'm talking to the other interface, and if there is an anomaly in that rate, very simple example, I have a 5 TPS of API that I'm generating. It's usually a 5 transactions per second on this particular credit card transaction, let's say. And all of a sudden, you've got a 25 transactions per second. That's an anomaly. And I think the speaker before me had a very nice chart about SIEM. That's extremely important. I can't reiterate the importance of that. It's security event management. If you as an IT admin know that each of us are talking to each of the other parts in your network and you have that map or a heat map, so to speak, that is going to tell you where the potential problem is going to be. And also containment. Yes, I have a security flaw. Remember what happened to AIMS. Patient records were stolen and we all don't know what happened in reality and how much was paid as ransomware or whatever. So every ransomware attack that gets reported, 9 don't get reported for obvious reasons. You don't want to be the one out there who has a security flaw in your network and so on. So it's a multi-fold answer, and the most important thing is whomever you're onboarding, that has to have internal security. After that, a company like Cisco, one of my colleagues in the industry, who would come and fortify the remaining part of the equation. I hope that answers.
Yeah, thank you. So SIEM and IM actually incident and access management policies definitely will help us in that.
I'm sorry, I think there is, can we take one more quick question? There is a question in the back. There's one more after that. Oh, we'll limit it to one question. Okay, yeah, she's getting worried.
Okay. Now, Vikas was talking about the high frequency cameras when the production is going on and the painting is going on. And if you are finding that there is something wrong in the painting, then immediately some correction steps will be taken. So that means when it is so much automation is there, then the painting specifications and the way of applying it will be there in the automation system. So how you will see from the camera that the painting is of the substandard, and then you will take the corrective action? This is my question. Thank you.
So there are two things out there for doing that type of analysis. You need very high speed, very robust, very low latency type of communication, which obviously 5G clubbed with edge, clubbed with AI is going to give it to you. Second, over the time, with the learning algorithms of AI, you develop that competency wherein you are able to detect, okay, these are the faulty ones, and that's the way to learn them. So with help of AI and the deep learning and all that, the backend analysis which have been done, which will help you to conclude this type of analysis.
When the AI has designed a system, that from the point A to the point Z, the process is already well defined in the design stage, and now production has started. Those steps now nobody can interfere unless something goes very wrong somewhere. Then you have to stop the total process. Then you have to attend to a painting. You said that painting. So the total process will stop. Then from where you have to again start that process, that has to be again fed to the AI system so that we can start process from the painting onward. 10 steps are there. So that is a very big question mark, because I have not understood that. Thank you.
Yeah. So the point is like how we can automatically detect all of these failures and how we can keep learning from these failures over the time. If we keep on like giving entire feed to AI will keep on learning like why it is happening, and then we can bring in the learning quickly. And since it is all automated, it's detected, and then the production stops for a moment, and then we can remove the piece and the production starts quickly. So the lag is always like reduced. If you see the production time on assembly line, it's reducing continuously with the help of all of these technologies brought together.
I think we can take further discussions offline. I'm getting glares from Sam and Ankit to end this discussion. So thank you so much. I think real quickly, few key learnings. One is to really have the strong use case, identify the use case for your industry. Second is to have a clear objective. What do you want to achieve from that use case? And then you look at an ecosystem of partners, because obviously if you're talking about multiple technologies, you will need multiple partners to offer different technologies. Keep a track of the trends and try to follow, like you talked about the edge servers bit. So that's important. And ultimately, of course, there's going to be a lot of integration challenges and, looking at privacy, security, keeping track of basics. It's a must, I think. But thank you. I think we can only talk about so much in a panel. So thank you so much, gentlemen. And thank you so much for listening patiently. We can maybe have discussions offline.
Thank you so much to all the panelists and Anil. And may I request Ishan Ranjan, the first editor of Voice and Data, to please come on stage and present to our panelists the memento of our appreciation. Can we start with Himanshu? Yeah. I have a few quick announcements to make as well. At 3:15, we have a valedictory function, and that function is celebrating the entire 30 years of the telecom industry. We have a lot of stalwarts coming in who are going to share stories, who are going to talk about how their journey has been. So kindly requesting all leaders, the audience, to be present for that valedictory session. We're going to have a celebratory wine and cheese toast, which is going to be a very different experience So requesting all leaders and requesting our audiences to be there. Also, the audience, I'm requesting you to please fill the feedback forms that you can collect from the registration counter. Your feedback will only help us to improve and be better the next time we present the conference. And those who submit the feedback forms will get special goodies, which is a surprise. We won't really tell it right now. So those who submit feedback forms will be getting goodies at the end of the conference. So don't forget to please collect the feedback form from the registration counter and submit it. And fill it first and submit it, of course. Well, that's a huge panel, yeah. Great. Can we have a quick photograph? And thank you. We're taking a break with the first leg of the conference that comes to an end. We break for lunch, and ladies and gentlemen, let's assemble back in the hall at 2:20 sharp. 2:20 is when we begin the second phase of the conference, so requesting everyone to be back. In the meanwhile, let me thank our presenting partner CISCO, Platinum AI partner PC Solutions and HPE, Telecom partner Airtel 5G Plus, Gold partner Vodafone Idea Limited, Satcom partner Hughes Communication India, Academia partner APJ Education, and research partner CyberMedia Research. Thank you, audience. Please be back at 2:20 and enjoy your lunch.